So I gave up drinking 9 months ago, and I always wanted to do it because I felt in my heart that it would just be better for me not to drink and to live, I guess, what you'd consider a sober life. But I didn't know how it would affect my life. And now, after 9 months of not drinking, I have a pretty good idea of how it has affected my life. Um, I own and manage a small personal injury law firm in New York City called Redmond Law Firm, and we handle car accidents and trip and fall accidents and medical malpractice cases. And over the last 4 years, the firm has been growing. And during that time, I have accumulated over 1,200 clients, and my business has been growing, and I have been expanding with my staff, and it's become a bit stressful managing these clients and managing all of my staff. And so I had become or gotten into the habit at the end of the day of having some drinks. I really didn't drink during the day ever, but I would look forward to having a shot or two shots of a bourbon on the rocks when I got home, and then even having some wine at dinner with my wife. And that became sort of a routine for me over the last couple of years while I was running my business. And, you know, I felt pressure as the business was growing, and I felt like I was drinking after work as a way to release the pressure, to relieve it, and to undo any stress that I had. And it worked pretty well, I thought, because basically when you start drinking, the first couple of minutes, you get that little rush of euphoria and you feel pretty good. And I would think about how everything in the business was going well, and any problems that I was having that I was sort of putting off, I would just they would fade out of my mind when I was having those couple of drinks. So you kind of forget about those stresses. But of course, we all know they don't go away. They just kind of get hidden or put to the side for a little while. But I always look forward to coming home and having that drink and chit-chatting with my wife, and it made the evening feel like a bit more of a festive type of evening as opposed to just work, come home, eat dinner, watch TV, go to bed, work. So I kind of like had in my mind that this was going to be, a little bit of a party time in the evening. And so things were going along like that for quite a while, but I did have in the back of my mind that my best friend doesn't drink. So he is sort of an example to me of somebody that seemed to be living a very pleasant, I don't know, I would say enjoyable life without drinking. And, but I always kind of felt sorry for him. I was like, oh, I feel bad for him. He can't have a drink. He can't experience that euphoria that I have when I have my drink. And then, of course, now I haven't been drinking for 9 months and I have a completely different opinion about it. But back then when I was drinking, I kind of felt bad for him, and I felt bad for people that felt that were alcoholics that said that they couldn't drink, because I felt like they were missing out on one of life's little pleasures, I would say, as opposed to, people that are maybe considered alcoholics that have a real drinking problem, but and they seem to get to the point where it's destructive and it can hurt their lives and their marriages and their relationships. I wasn't per se at that point. I never drank during the day, and I never had too many drinks that I lost consciousness or anything like that. And I was lucky in a way because after 4 drinks, I would start to get a headache. So that would always make me stop drinking. But I would recognize, and I did recognize that when I would have a little too much and my wife would have a little too much, sometimes we would have tension and stress and we'd argue, and it wasn't always a very pleasant outcome. We'd be mad at each other, and then generally the next day we would kind of forgive and forget. But while we were arguing, it wasn't too much fun, I will say. And back in January of this year, 2023, we had an argument, and it was not pleasant. And I kind of was worried that I just didn't like the experience of arguing with her. She is not, she didn't argue in what I would think would be a fair way when she's drinking, and I don't take it that well. And so the whole thing went down the negative spiral. So it was after that particular argument that I decided to give up drinking. And in a way, it was easy, and in another way, it wasn't. I had always wanted to see what it was like to live without drinking. And so that was in the back of my mind. So that made it a little easier. But those pressures and stresses of running my business didn't go away right away. And so I was worried that, I needed that sort of relief of having a drink, and I enjoyed it. And I'm not going to say I don't. I know that it's enjoyable to have a drink. But I decided to give it up. And that was 10 months now. And there is a little trick, I think, to giving up alcohol, which I will tell you at the very end of this little speech. But you still do have to want to give it up. But the thing that is worked for me, I will tip you off to at the end of this little speech. And the reason that I'm even giving this little speech is because I found it very useful to listen to speeches like this while I was going through what I was going through, because it was a little inspirational and it gave me a little bit more strength to stick to it. And one of the reasons that it's a little bit hard for me is that most of the people in my circle of friends and family do like to drink, and like to drink a lot. And when you're in a group that likes to drink, it can be a little bit of a pressure to feel like you have to drink. But luckily, my group knows that I'm not drinking, and nobody gives me any pressure. And my wife is very supportive, and my friends, for the most part, are pretty supportive. And I used to think that I was drinking in these social experiences in order to feel more comfortable and to feel more relaxed. And I felt like I needed it to acclimate and to feel good, because I did give up drinking about 10 years ago at my 50th, around my 50th birthday, for 50 days. And I remember going to a